Hey guys, how you going? My name is Dom, and in today's video we're going to be creating a full page header using HTML, CSS and optionally a tiny bit of JavaScript in order to add some finishing touches. Okay, so this right here is going to be the finished product. So as we can see, it's a fairly simplistic looking full page header. We've got the navigation bar in the top right corner, and we've also got here a call to action element which allows your users which allows you to inform your users of some sort of action which you would like them to take. For example, signing up to a website or viewing products and things like that. So all of this stuff here is really easy to achieve. Now it's also going to be responsive as well as mobile friendly. So for example, if I was to go to mobile view, we can see here on the mobile view, we've got obviously, if I just zoom out here a tiny bit, we can see here we have of course the hamburger menu, which is going to replace the regular navigation menu right here, and it's all working quite nicely. Now one more thing before we get into the code, we can see here also that we have of course the background changing color as we scroll down, and that is just going to ensure that of course the header, or the bar should I say, is going to remain on top. So let's go inside this tab right here and begin from scratch to of course create what we just saw. Now, inside the index.html, we have this right here. It's a fairly simplistic HTML file. I've got only this linked main.css file, which of course is currently empty. Now, I've also included the Google Material Icons library, so be sure to head over to the Google Material Icons website. I'll be leaving a link to this in the description below for you to visit, and you can just simply copy and paste this link right here into the HTML head of your file just like this. So now we are ready to go. So we're going to be working on each section and then working on essentially the HTML, then the CSS for each section. Okay, so for example, let's begin with the header. Okay, so right inside here, we can make a new header element, okay, with a class of header. Okay, now inside here, we can create a new class or a new div and give this a class of u-centered. So this one right here, u-centered, is going to be just a utility class which allows us to center some content. Okay, we're going to be seeing what this is in a bit more detail very shortly. But also inside the header is going to be the call to action. So essentially this header right here is going to be the entire green part which we just saw. So this entire thing is going to be the header in this case. So let's include this call to action element right here. So back inside here, we can make a new div with a class of call to action. Okay, and then inside here, we can then create a few more elements. We can say h1 with a class of call to action __ title. So once again, on my channel, using the block element modifier CSS naming convention, we can put inside here sign up. Okay, now we can have a new element for the call to action __ description. Inside here, I'm just going to copy and paste what I wrote in the previous example. So I'll just copy and paste all of this stuff right here, just some blurb or some content for signing up. And lastly, we can create a button with a type of button right inside here, and a class of call to action, then __ button. Okay. Inside here now, we can simply just say something like sign me up. So now, saving all of this right here and refreshing the page, we have something like this. Okay, so now let's work on making the header, of course, a full width and height, adding the background, adding the call to action, and all of that stuff. So inside the CSS file, we can begin by first targeting the root right here. And inside here, we're just going to simply define a few CSS variables. So we're going to say right here, bar-height is equal to 72px. So in this case right here, the bar height refers to the height of the bar at the top of the page containing the logo and of course the navigation menu. Okay, we're going to set that right there. We're going to also set a color for the primary, so a primary color, in this case right here, using the dcode green color, and also the same thing, but this time using a light version of that primary color. So in my case right here, I'm going to say 08FFD2. Okay, so of course you can customize this, make this whatever color you want. It's totally up to you. Okay, now also we're going to be targeting the body right here. We're going to give a margin of 0. We're also going to give a font family of your base font family. For example, let's just use Quicksand in my case. Okay, let's just now save this, and we can also now target the header class right here. So for the header, we're going to be setting a height of 100 VH, meaning 100% of the viewport height. Okay, we're going to be setting a background of linear gradient. We're going to be saying to bottom right. Then we're going to be taking advantage of our CSS variables defined above. So we're going to say from the primary color to the color primary light. Okay, and that'll give us our nice gradient, as the background. Okay, you can optionally replace this right here with an image instead. Okay, we're going to be using a display of flex and align items of center. So these two right here are going to ensure that the actual call to action element right here is going to be in the middle of the entire header. Okay, we're going to see this very shortly, but back inside here, we're going to be also setting the padding top to be var, then inserting here the bar height. So right here, by having this padding at the top, we're essentially just we're providing space for the actual bar to exist outside of the header, if that makes sense. Okay, we can also say box sizing of border box, and this right here is going to ensure that the padding does not blow out the actual height of the header. So now saving this and refreshing, we have something like this. Okay, so we can see right here that of course the header is taking up the entire width and height of the page. We have that padding right there also in the green right there, which of course is going to allow the bar to have some space to exist. Okay, now also quite importantly, we can see the call to action has of course been placed in the center. Okay, so now let's work on creating or styling up this utility centered class right here. Okay, so inside the CSS, let's target the u-centered class. We're going to be saying here a width of 100%. And also a max width of 1200 px. So essentially, this is just saying we want the width to be the absolute most it can be, but let's not make it go over 1200 px. And that right there is going to allow it to be responsive as we go down to smaller devices. We're going to be setting the margin to be 0, then auto, to allow it to be horizontally centered, as well as a padding of 16 pixels. Okay, a box sizing of, a box sizing, my mistake. So a box sizing of border box is going to ensure we don't let this padding blow out the width of the actual container. So now, saving this and refreshing, we have something like this. As we just saw, the sign up moves a bit more to the right. So if I zoom out now, we can see right there, if I can just access the tools here, we can see right here the U-centered is right there. So if I just continue zooming out, we can see right there it is being centered, as we can see by that. Okay, so let's move on now to styling up the call to action. So for this one, let's go back inside here. We can target the call to action container right here. We're going to say a maximum width of 400 px, okay, as well as a padding of 32 px. Okay, we can say box sizing border box once again, as well as a color of white. Okay, something like that. We can also say backgrounds, and we can set the background to be RGBA 0, 0, 0, 0, then 0.1. So basically just a 10% opaque black, and also a border radius of, let's just do once again 16 px. So now saving this and refreshing, we have right here this container. So I'll just zoom in a bit more, something like that, and there we go. Okay, so let's focus on styling up the title, the description, and also the button. So back inside here, we can target the call to action title. We can just say margin top and make this 0. As far as the description goes, for this one, we can just say font weight. Let's make this 500 and also a font size of 1.1 em. Okay, so right here, in order for this to work properly, you need a font with support for 500 weight. If you need that, you can just simply head over to fonts.google.com, and on this page right here, you can simply choose a font, for example, Roboto, and then once you're inside here, you can make sure you choose the 500 weight right here. You can select this style as well as a bold, for example, and a regular. Then from here, you can simply go into the embed section, copy and paste this link right here into the head of your element, so your HTML head tag, and then of course the font is going to be available for you to use. Okay, so that is if you need this 500 font weight right here. If not, you can just make this normal and leave that property out. Okay. Moving on to the call to action button. So for this one, we can simply set a background to be white. Okay, we can say outline, let's make this none. Let's give a font of 700. So basically, let's just do bold. So we're going to say bold 1.1 em once again, and then quicksand, then sans serif. Of course, here just place your own font. Okay. We can say color and make the color just the same as your primary color right there. We can also say border, make this 1px solid and then white. Okay. We can then say border radius. You can make this something like 4px. Okay. And some padding. So let's just do 10px top and bottom and 16px left and right. A cursor of pointer, and a nice transition on the background just to finish it off. So we can say transition, make this background at 0.15 seconds, and also a color of 0.15 seconds. So now, in order for this transition to work, we can simply, once again, target the call to action button, this time targeting the on hover. And when you hover over the button, we can simply just say background and make this transparent, and also a color of white. Now, I might actually just, let's just put this transparent right here as the color of the text, and that is just going to ensure that we're a bit more consistent. Okay, so now saving this and refreshing, we have this right here. So unfortunately, that didn't work too well. Let's just go back and put this back to our primary color right there, and let's try it again. So saving this and refreshing, we have this right here. So of course, we have the button, we have the styled text, and hovering over the button gives us this nice transparent effect. Okay, so that is basically all we need to do when it comes to the call to action and also the header itself. So we can now move on to styling up the actual bar at the top of the page. Okay, so for this one, we need to write some HTML. So let's go back inside here in the HTML file, and we can begin by creating a new div right down here with a class of bar. Okay, now within here, we can also create a new div with a class of bar underscore underscore content, and also a class of u-centered, once again taking advantage of our utility class to center our content. Okay, alongside this, we're going to include the dcode logo. So if I just go inside here and I say image, then I can just say source. So for the image source, I'm just going to copy and paste what I put for this one right here. So I'll copy this image address and then paste it inside here. Of course, you can put your own logo inside here. Okay, we can specify some alternate text just like that, and also let's give this a class of bar underscore underscore logo. So I might just stop here and save this and refresh to see what we actually have going on. So refreshing gives us this right here. As we can see, we have the whole space down here filled up because of course the logo is actually quite large. So let's move the logo and the bar to the top of the page right there. So back inside here, we can begin to style up the bar. So inside the CSS, let's target the bar, and we're going to be saying right here, firstly, a position of fixed, okay? This will ensure, of course, that the actual bar remains at the top of the page. We can say z-index, set this to be 1, to ensure that, of course, the bar is going to always be on top, okay? Just like that. Then we can say a top of 0 and a left of 0 for the top left corner. Then we can say width at 100% and a height of, then using our bar height variable right there. Okay, we can also specify a box shadow, and we can make this just simply 0, 0, 10px RGBA 0, 0, 0, then 0.15 for a very subtle box shadow. Okay, so now I might just save this and refresh, and now we can see we have this right here. So of course you can see right here we have the actual bar. It's currently got a transparent background, but of course you can see right there that is the bottom of the bar. Okay, so now it's going to be all about just positioning the actual logo and a few more things. Okay, so let's go back inside here. The very last thing to do for the bar is also just going to be having a transition right here. Okay, this will be for the background at 0.15 seconds, and also alongside that we can make a modifier class for the bar. We're going to say bar dash dash bg, short for background. Okay, and for this one we can just say background and make this our primary color. We're going to be seeing this in a bit more detail a bit later on, but essentially this will be the class which gets applied to the bar as you scroll down the page. So in the actual example right here, we can see upon scrolling down, it gets the background. So that is basically what that class is for. It's for ensuring the bar has that background right there upon scrolling down. But we're going to be seeing that in a bit more detail later on. Okay, now let's move on to styling up the bar __ content. Okay, so for the actual content itself, let's give this a height of 100% to ensure that it takes up the full height of the actual container, in this case being the bar itself. We can also say display of flex, a justify content of space between. So the reason for this space between is because we want space between the logo and the navigation bar. Okay, we can also say align items, set this to be center to ensure that our items are going to be vertically centered. So now saving this and refreshing, we don't see too much of a change, but we can see right there the actual logo is being vertically centered in terms of the bar content. Okay, cool. So now moving on, let's ensure this logo actually looks decent. Okay, so let's go back inside here. We're going to be targeting the bar __ logo class, and for this one we can simply just say height at 100%. So now saving this and refreshing, we get this right here. Okay, now we can also see upon zooming out, so for example if this was a quite a large screen, we can see right there we get the maximum width of 1200px coming into play on this U-centered class right there. Okay, so let's move on now to styling up the actual hamburger menu. Okay, so basically I'm referring to this one right here. So we're going to be designing this to be mobile first. Okay, so we can now include this hamburger menu. So let's go back inside this page, inside the HTML, and for this one we can simply go inside here and we can place a new input field right here. Okay, so a new input field right here with a type of checkbox. Okay, so we're going to be going for a CSS only solution when it comes to this navigation bar. Okay, so right here, let's give this an ID of INP nav toggle. So essentially how it's going to work is we're going to be saying when this checkbox right here is checked, we're going to display the full screen navigation menu. Okay, quite straightforward. And essentially pressing on the actual hamburger menu icon is going to display, or sorry, it's going to check this box and uncheck it, essentially giving it control over how the navigation menu gets displayed. Okay, so we're going to see how that works very shortly, but just include this ID right here. Okay, so now we can include a label with the for attribute set to INP nav toggle, just like that. Okay, and then inside here, we can simply include one of our Google material icons. So we can say I material dash icons, then pass through here menu. And this right here is going to print out or render the Google material icon library icon for menu. Okay, so let's just save this. I'll stop talking and refresh the page, and we can see we get something like this. Okay, so we can see here, of course, we have the actual checkbox. Okay, we're gonna leave this visible just for now. Okay, just to see how it's gonna work. And right up here, of course, we can see we get the icon being rendered right there. So now, if I was to press on this icon, we can see the checkbox gets toggled right there. Okay, so that right there is core, or it is key, should I say, to how the navigation menu is going to work. Okay, so let's go back inside the CSS, and we can target. We can just target the actual the nav toggle class. So I did actually forget to add a class here. So let's go back right here. We're going to be adding a class to this label. We can say bar underscore nav dash toggle. Okay, so for the nav toggle element, we're going to be targeting it. So let's go back inside here. So bar nav toggle, we're going to be saying right here a cursor of pointer, and also we can then target the actual icon inside of it. So let's just do this right here to target the actual icon. And for this one, we can just say color. Let's make the color to be white, and also a font size of 2 EM to make it a bit larger. So now saving this and refreshing gives us this right here. Okay, so now we can move on to styling up the navigation menu. And when I say navigation menu, because we're doing this mobile first, we need to style up this one right here first. Okay, and then we can move on to the desktop version. So let's create this right here. Very straightforward to do. So let's go inside the HTML, and we can create a new nav element inside here with a class of nav. Okay, and then within here, we can specify each one of our navigation links. So we can say A with an href of a hash just for now. Okay, of course, replace this with your actual link. Okay, we can give this a class of nav underscore link. Inside here, I can just say, for example, tutorials, and then copy this. Let's just do 4 more times. Okay, we can say courses, then we can say online tutoring, for example, and we can also say right here, work with me. Okay, cool. So now, of course, saving this and refreshing gives us this right here. Okay, so let's work on, of course, putting this this navigation bar in the full screen right down here. So to do that, let's go inside the CSS, and we're going to be targeting the nav class right here. And we can say, first off, a flex direction of none. Okay, so we're going to be using a display of flex here. So let's give this a display of flex. Actually, my mistake, this needs to be column. So put in column right there, and that ensures that, of course, the links appear stacked on top of one another. Okay, we can also say position and make this fixed. That way it is always on top. We can give a top right here of bar, then passing through bar height. This ensures that the actual navigation menu appears right under the navigation bar, if that makes sense. So of course, right here in the example, we have this space right here, okay, and that is due to the top property being set to the height of the actual bar. Okay, so back inside here, we can also say a left of 0 and a width of 100% right there. Let's give a height of also, you know what? No, it needs to be calc, then 100 VH. Okay, then subtracting the bar height. So basically, we're just grabbing the height of the actual page or the actual visible area. Then we're subtracting the height of the actual bar. Then we can say padding, set this to be 32px, for example. Let's do a dark grey background, so right here, 222. And also a box sizing of border box. So now saving all of this and refreshing gives us something like this. Okay, so now it's just going to be about styling up the actual links themselves. So let's go back inside here. We can just say nav __ link. Then we can say a font weight of 500, a padding of 16px top and bottom and 0 for left and right. Let's remove the underline by doing text decoration and setting this to be none. We can set the actual text color to be white and a border bottom of a slightly lighter grey compared to the background right up here. So we can just simply say, let's just do RGBA 255, 255, 255, then we can say 0.1. So now saving this and refreshing gives us this right here. Unfortunately, we don't have the actual border bottom, so let's fix that. I was trying to be a bit smart there, so actually that needs to be RGBA. So RGBA right there. Let's try again, and we get that right there. Perfect. Okay, so now one last thing, and that is going to be when you hover over the links themselves. So back inside here, let's target nav link, then :hover, and for this one we can just say opacity and set this to be 0.8. Okay, then we can just save this right here and refresh, and now we get this right here. So now it's going to be as simple as just making this navigation menu hidden by default, and then we're going to be displaying it whenever the user clicks on the link, sorry, on the actual menu button up here. So back inside the CSS, let's go to the navigation class, and we're going to say display and set this to be none by default. Okay, then we can target the INP nav toggle, so the actual input field itself, and we can say :checked. Then we can use the general sibling combinator to say .nav. Okay, so basically it's just saying when the when the input field gets checked, we're going to target the sibling nav. In this case right here refers to this one. Okay, so of course right here in the HTML, this input is a sibling to this nav, therefore it's going to get targeted. So now we can simply just say display, set this to be flex. Let's save this and refresh. We can see by default it is not being displayed. If I press this button, it gets displayed right there, and of course this checkbox is now checked. Let's now toggle that off, and it's working the exact same way. And that is how the navigation bar is going to work, at least on mobile. Okay, so let's just also hide this by default. So let's go back inside here. We can say INP nav toggle. Let's make this a display of none. That way it is then hidden. Okay, just like this. So now this right here is probably good enough. Okay, so maybe on your desktop devices you're perfectly happy with this right here, where of course you have an actual hamburger icon for the menu. So you might be okay with this, but I want to make sure that the desktop users actually have a proper navigation bar to work with. So of course something like this. Okay, but also just keep in mind that this right here is still perfectly fine, but it's up to you. If you want this right here, I'm going to show you. So let's go inside the CSS. So for the CSS, we're going to simply use @media, and we're going to say screen, then we're going to say and min width, and set this to be 767 px. Okay, so basically this is just saying whenever the screen size is over this amount, we're going to be applying these styles right here. So of course on mobile devices, this is not going to be true, and these styles inside here are not going to be applied. Okay, so with that being said, let's just simply firstly remove the actual toggle button. So we can say bar nav toggle. We can set this to be display of none. Okay, so now let's save this and refresh, and now we can see that goes away. If I slowly drag the browser to be less than 767 pixels, we can see it's coming back. Okay, cool. So inside here, we can also target the actual nav, and we're going to simply be resetting a few values for the navigation menu. So basically, we're going to take it from the actual dark background to be in the top right corner. So we're going to say display and make this initial. Okay, then we can say position and make this back to static. Okay, cool. Then we can say flex direction. We can make this row. Actually, you know what? That's my mistake. Let's leave this out just for now, because the display of initial is going to work okay. It's going to make it block, so that flex property won't actually work. So my mistake, guys. We can also set a width of unset, as well as a height of unset, and a padding of unset. So basically, we're just removing or reversing those values set before. We can also say background and just make that transparent. Okay, when it comes to the navigation links, so we can target the nav link. For this one, we can just say border bottom and remove that bottom border. Okay, we can also say nav link, then say colon not, then pass through here last of type. So basically, for each navigation link that is not the last of their type, we can say margin right and say 24px just to add some space between our navigation links. So now saving this and refreshing, it'll give us something like this. We've essentially reversed those styles that were set by the defaults. Okay, so now, of course, right here, it is all working perfectly fine. If I was to resize the window, we can see we go back to the mobile version. Let's go back out, and it's working right there. Okay, so that is how the responsiveness, or the mobile friendliness, should I say, is going to work. Okay, so that right there is probably going to be fine for most of you, but if you guys want the extra tiny bit where it's actually going to change the background color, we're going to need a bit of JavaScript in order for that to work. So I do want to just add some dummy text right here to our example. So let's go back inside here in the HTML, and I'm just going to be copy and pasting some content which I prepared earlier. So let's just paste all of this stuff inside here. It is just some not so important dummy text. Okay, so now the effect of this is just so we actually have some scrolling going on, as we can see right here. And we can see right here we have the problem where essentially the bar is transparent. So of course you can see the actual call to action is being shown through the bar, which of course isn't the best looking. Okay, so let's change that. So of course your one solution might just be to always set a background color on your bar. So for example, we can simply add the bar BG class. So let's add the bar BG class right here. So --BG. Let's save this and refresh, and we can see we now always get that background color, and that's going to solve our problem right there. But let's make this, of course, only happen when it needs to. Okay, so to achieve that, let's go inside the JavaScript. Okay, right down here. But I also just want to remove this class by default. It's going to be added through JavaScript instead. So let's just save this, go down here. And for this, we can say document.addEventListener. We can listen for the DOM content loaded event. So basically, as soon as the document is ready to work with, we're going to run this function inside here. Okay, so this function is going to make use of an intersection observer in order to detect whether or not the user has scrolled down. So we can say const observer is equal to a new intersection observer right here. And this is going to take in a callback. So for this, I can just say entries, okay, then pass through here this function. Okay, we're also going to say a threshold of 0.9. So my apologies if this right here doesn't make too much sense. I've actually got a whole video dedicated to the intersection observer if you want to check that one out, but I'm not going to be going into too much detail. You just need to know that essentially with this threshold right here, we're just saying as soon as there is 90% of the header that is visible, we're going to be running this function inside here. So I can just demonstrate this for you right now. So let's go inside here. We're going to say console log and then just pass through something like dcode. Okay. Let's just save this. Actually, one more thing to do. Let's go down here. We're going to be saying observer.observe. Okay. We're going to pass through here now document.querySelector, then pass through here the header class right there. So basically, these properties are going to be applied to the header itself. So now, as soon as we get 90% visibility of the header, this function is going to run. So let's save this, then refresh. We can see here, we get the first initial console log, that is by default. But now if I was to scroll down a bit, we can see right there, we got the second console log. What if I go back up? Going back up gives me my third console log. So basically, as soon as we reach 90% visibility right here, we get our console log. So now we can simply check if we have scrolled down or scrolled up. So to do that, we're going to be making use of the entry intersection ratio property. So we can just say right here, console log entries at index 1 or index 0, should I say, then dot intersection ratio. So saving this and refreshing, we can see right here when we are actually under the 90% or the 0.9, we get 0.88. If I was to scroll up, we get 0.9 and of course a bit more. So with this being said, we can tell now, if I was to go under right here, less than 0.9, we want the background to show. If I go over like this, we want it to go back to transparent. So with that being said, let's go inside here and we're going to be saying right here, document.querySelector, select the bar, and then we can say class list.toggle, then pass through here bar --bg. Then we can force the existence of that class. We can say entries at index 0 using the intersection ratio property. We can just say less than 0.9. This right here is going to give us true or false. If it's true, it's going to set the actual background. If it's false, of course, it is going to unset the bar BG class. So now, let's save this and refresh, and we have our final result right here. If I was to scroll down to 90%, we get that background. If I was to scroll up, it goes away. So that right there is how to create a full page header using HTML, CSS, and optionally a tiny bit of JavaScript for this effect right here. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be leaving the link to the code in the description below if you want to check it out. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.